Okay, so let's say I'm at Denny's and I decide I'm going to order some food for myself, okay? So looking at this menu, our little menu here, and it's morning time right now, so let's say I want to get an All-American Slam, and it is $13.50. Now, of course, we all know if you've eaten at a restaurant before, you're not going to just be paying $13.50. You're going to have to pay for tax and you need to pay for tips. So that's what we're going to go over today, really, really quick, because the reason why we can go over it really quick is because tax and tip uses the same methods that we've been using. It is just called tax and tip. So, all right. So let's say I'm gonna buy this All-American Slam. So turn to the back of your worksheet, to this worksheet that says tax and tip. Okay. So first thing you need to know about tax and tip is you already know how to do this technically. You already know how to do it because we've been doing it all along. Your tax and tip is adding the percentage, just like in markups. So remember, think back to when you were doing markups, when we were learning about markups and discounts. So you're figuring out the percentage of the price, then you're gonna add it, because tax is something that you have to pay for and tip is also something you have to pay for. So again, my All-American Slam costs $13.50. So let's figure out how much tax am I gonna need to pay for this meal. So let's say the tax is 7.5%. Okay, but we're not going to be leaving it at 7.5% or 7.5%. We need to turn that into a decimal. So we got to move that decimal over 2 places to the right and add a 0 there. So it will be 0.0 and 0.075 or 75 thousandths. Okay, so that's our decimal. So now we got to multiply that by $13.50 so that we can figure out the percentage of tax that I'm going to be paying. Okay, so $13.50 times 0.075 thousandths. Okay, 5 times 0 is 0, 5 times 5 is 25, 3 times 5 is 15, plus 2 is 17, 5 times 1 is 5, plus 1 is 6. Okay, and then we got to add our 0 for a placeholder. 7 times 0 is 7, 5 times 7 is 35, 3 times 7 is 21, plus 3 is 24. And 7 times 1 is 7, plus 2 is 9. And if I wanted to, I could multiply 0 times 0, 0 times 5, 0 times 3, and 0 times 1, but I don't need to because it's just going to add a bunch of zeros here, and then when you add it all together, it's still going to be the same. So I don't need to do that. So let's add it all together. 0, 5, 7 plus 5 is 12, 6 plus 4 is 10, plus 1 is 11, then 9 plus 1 is 10. Okay, now we gotta count how many place values are behind all the decimals in our problem. So not just one of them, all of them. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In total, we have 5 place values behind a decimal. So we gotta count off 5 place values to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, obviously we have this many numbers, and we're not going to use that many numbers because we're working with money, and with money you're only using up 4 digits, or you're using up 2 digits behind the decimal because that's how change works. So we're going to round to the nearest tenth. So I see my 10th place right here. Look over to the right. This number is below 5, so I don't need to round up. It's going to stay $1.01. So our tax equals $1.01. Okay, so now that's how much tax I'm going to be paying, but that's not how much I'm going to be paying for this meal with tax. Okay, because in order to figure out how much I'm going to be paying for my All-American Grand Slam, I need to add the tax to the price. So $13.50 plus $1.01 is going to be $14.51. So this is the price of meal with tax, okay? But this is also not how much I'm going to be paying. As you know, Denny's is a sit-down restaurant. So I have a waitress or a waiter, and I need to pay that waiter or waitress with a tip, because that would be a really messed up thing to do, to eat out at a place where there's a waiter or waitress and not give a tip. So tip is always depending on how much or how well you like the service of the restaurant, and just common courtesy. At least here in America, it's common courtesy to leave a tip for a waiter or a waitress. So this is not how much I'm going to be paying in all for my meal. I'm going to need to add a tip with the tax. So if I take the price of my meal with tax, and I'm going to pay tip. So let's say I want to leave a 15% tip, which is the common amount that you would leave for decent service. If you have a decent service at the restaurant, usually most people go with 15%. Okay, if it's like extraordinary service, then you can leave like 20% if you want to. If the service was kind of whatever and it was so-so and it wasn't as great, you can probably leave a tip lower than 15%. But the common one is 15%. So the tip I'll be leaving at this Denny's for my All-American Grand Slam was 15%, because the service was pretty good. So of course we're not going to leave that at 15%. We need to turn that into a decimal, and if you move the decimal 2 places to the left, it will be 15 hundredths, or 0 and 15 hundredths, or 0.15. Okay, so now we have our decimal. So to find out the percentage of money we'll be paying for tip, we got to multiply this by $14.51. So 14.51 times 15 hundredths. 5 times 1 is 5, 5 times 25, carry the 2, 4 times 5 is 20, plus 2 is 22. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 2 is 7. Then add a 0 for a placeholder. 1 times 1 is 1, 5 times 1 is 5, 4 times 1 is 4, and 1. And then we got to add all that up together. Okay, I'm left with 21,765, but we need to add our decimals. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 decimals to the after the 4 place values after the decimal. So we got to count off 4 place values to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm left with 2.1765. But again, we're working with money, so we're not going to be using all of these digits after the decimal. So we just need to round to the nearest tenth. So if we round to the nearest tenth, I'm left with 2.17, but I got to look at this number right here. So is it, because the thousandth place, this number after this here, oh, actually, you know what? I'm rounding to the, not to the nearest tenth. I apologize. I'm rounding to the nearest hundredth, because this is my 10th place, this is my 100th place. So looking at the number after my 100th place, and it looks like it's greater than 5. So if I'm rounding to the nearest 100th, I'm left with, my tip will be $2.18, because I need to round up, because this number after the 100th place is greater than 5. So I'm left with $2.18. So that's the amount of tip I will be leaving. But to figure out the total amount I'm going to be paying for this meal, I need to add this to my price up here with tax. So $14.51 plus $2.18. Okay, so my price of my meal with tax and tip is $16.69. So that's my total, the price I'll be paying for this meal in total, okay, with tax and tip. Okay, so I'm going to Denny's. I buy this All-American Slam, and it's delicious, and I have to pay for tax because tax is included in all the state of California unless you're shopping at like the swap meet or something where they don't have tax there. But at restaurants and at retail stores at the mall or Target or anything like that, you're going to need to pay for tax. So tax is always going to have to be included. And then, of course, like I said, because I'm eating at a sit-down restaurant, I need to pay for tip for the waiter or waitress. So with tip, I'll be paying $16.69. Okay, so that's how you figure out tax and tip. Like I said, you already know how to do this. You just got to multiply the percentage and then add that number to your price, your original price. And like I apologized before, you're not rounding to the nearest tenth, you're rounding to the nearest hundredth. So you're looking at the number after. So if you have more than 2 digits after your decimal, then you need to look at the thousandth place to see if you need to round up or round down. So here I rounded down, here I had to round up. So now that you're finished with this, what you're going to do is you're going to look at this worksheet on the back. What's for dinner? You're going to be working with one partner. I'll explain this instructions in class today, but you're working with a partner and you'll have the Denny's menu and you're going to figure out how much are you going to be paying with tax and tip for a meal together. Okay, so so listen for my instructions. After you finish these notes, work with a partner to figure out your dinner amount.